Got it.
I'm James Barfield with the Urban Connection. And remember, this is a channel that is often duplicated, but is never often imitated, but is never duplicated. And today, we talk about things that others won't talk about. And today is going to be no exception, because today I have a very special guest by the name of Stephanie Hernandez. And Mrs. Hernandez is a former employee of the Department of Corrections here in Wichita, Sedgwick County. And we're going to talk about the latest news to drop, which dropped on Thursday, was an announcement by the Sedgwick County employees that they have had to close a juvenile justice facility that was meant to keep people, juveniles, that did not necessarily need to be incarcerated, but they had a facility that they allow them not to be jailed, but they would have the same privileges basically as any other person. I mean, they would be housed in the facility, but they would not be on lockdown. Now, the reasons for this, as stated by the county commissioner or the employee that's in charge of this facility, was that they didn't have the proper staffing. So basically, this should come as no surprise to anybody. But basically, what it does is it makes the county commission look bad, because of the fact that they have known for quite a period of time that staffing was atrocious at all of the DOC facilities. So Stephanie Hernandez is a former employee of the Department of Corrections. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming and taking the time. Stephanie, this staffing issue is not a new issue. So how do you explain what happened here on Thursday?
I don't really have an explanation for it. I just can speak from my own experience that it has been a chronic issue for years with staffing. They just cannot maintain the people, and then the good people that they do have, they get treated in such a way that they don't want to continue to work there. So whenever they quit, the people that are still working there have to pick up that extra, those extra hours, and it takes time away from their families, and they get very, very tired. Sometimes you might go into work and not expect to have to work. If you go into your shift at 3 o'clock in the morning, you might not expect that you might have to stay until 7 o'clock the next day. It's just very, very common. And it's not just, I worked in adult programs, so it's not with just the adults, it's everyone.
Okay, so basically what we have is a situation as described by another unsolicited letter that I received about the conditions at the facilities, which stated that the supervisors basically don't even take into consideration the feelings nor the concerns of staff, and they basically drive away staff. Now, we're led to believe that a lot of this turnover is caused because of pay issues. That seems not to be the case. Rather, it is the fact that they are not respected, their issues are not taken into consideration, and as you say, they're almost mandated to work longer hours than what they signed up for. Is that what you've experienced?
Absolutely. I had one instance a couple years ago when my son was graduating from high school, and I mean, I really kind of had to get into it with the guy. I don't want to say his name, but he wasn't going to let me. In fact, he said, okay, you can go, but you need to turn right around and come back. So it's just things like that. Like it really messes around with your quality of living.
Yes.
Quality of life, because you really don't have, if you have little kids or anything that else that you have going on in your life, it makes it pretty difficult to you're picking your job or your family, basically. And everyone is angry, and everyone is in the same boat, even like the supervisors, like the frontline supervisors, like I was, you know, they're not the ones making this decisions. That's rolling downhill from other people that are making those decisions that don't have to work on weekends and holidays and stuff.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Employees are required to work longer hours, required to sacrifice their own family time to work on this job. Do supervisors do the same? Do they face the same situations?
Well, from my understanding, okay, so the staff members, like the COs, the COs, they're always gonna be working overtime first because they get paid like $14.90 an hour, someplace around there. And so that it's cheaper to have those people work time and a half at $14 than it would be somebody that's making close to $20 an hour, like $17 an hour. That would be, so the staff members are I'm sorry, the supervisors are not required to do the overtime first because it's more expensive that way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Now, here's the deal, Stephanie, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but the county commission is basically getting a bad look by the closing of this facility, especially when we're confronted with the situation with Sedgwick Lofton, okay? And even as I think you mentioned, during that period of time, there were people in that facility that were not trained to be in that facility, and they were there because of lack of staffing.
Right.
So
Right.
now, so this is not a new issue. So why is the county commission, it makes it look like they're not even in charge. It makes it look like there's incompetent people in charge, people who are unconcerned, and people who, now I have to put this on the county commission because staffing, matter of fact, one unsolicited letter that I received, and also the newspaper article on Thursday said that there are 75 open positions in the juvenile justice system. 75 out of 191. How can you possibly effectively and efficiently run an operation when you have that level of
You cannot. You
your,
can't, because by policy, there are requirements about how many people they need to have for adults. And from what I hear, it is the same thing with the juveniles. You have to have so many people on the floor at all times. And so in the adult programs, you know, somebody wouldn't show up for work. So what we're doing is, as supervisors, is as frontline supervisors, our responsibility to look for another person from another agency if we can't find anybody else from adult programs to come work with us that evening. So it could be like an ISO from the 905 building, the 905 Main, or it could be somebody from juvenile detention, or it could be somebody from JRF. Just as long as it's within the Sedgwick County Department of Corrections, they can come work for us.
okay, now what you're telling me is that even though these people had no training in adult supervision, they would be brought over from juvenile division and put into your facility with no training.
Right.
And now what you do is,
you know,
now
and we
what
would
you
them.
do,
I'm
what
sorry.
you do is now you take away an employee that is, I'm sure, much needed on the juvenile side and bring them into your facility now, which leaves the juvenile side without the proper staffing. Is that correct?
Probably in many instances, some of these people, you know, like they may have already completed a shift, and then somebody that works second shift calls up there and says, hey, does anybody want to work? And if somebody wants to pick up extra hours, then they can come over and work. And then it goes the same way. Like for one summer, they had like 2 or 3 of our COs temporarily stationed over in JDF that didn't have any experience, and just put them through a couple of classes, and, you know, to make sure that they were within compliance with the policies, so they could work over there for, you know, a couple of months.
Okay,
And then it would take away from our people, so then they would have to stay later hours, and then they would have the supervisors working later hours too.
now, in this last case here, were it not for the Department of Children and Families, because basically they're pretty much the ones that pulled the plug, because they said to the county, we're not going to give you any more time, because they've had, I believe, 1 or 2 30-day extensions in order to get sufficient employees to staff that facility. So this facility was designed for 24 or 25 people. As of today, as we speak, there's 5 people in there. Why is that so? Because they only have staffing to handle 5 people. So that means 19 people who should be in that facility are now in the juvenile jail. Okay.
Right.
This makes no sense at all. None whatsoever. And the county has to take, you know, I've said all along that when problems get to this extent, it's not the low-level employees that are responsible for this. It is the top of the food chain.
I agree.
That's where the problem lies. And until the Sedgwick County Commission gets serious about this, about starting at the top and working its way down, but you've got to replace some people at the top of the food chain in order to correct this problem. And they refuse to do that. That is why I've said to the people that when they formed this task force, they handcuffed them by not allowing them to talk to any of these supervisory people or any of the county employees. And you're not ever going to solve a problem if you cannot talk to people that are part of the problem. So therefore, we have now a completed task force, and they've made some recommendations, a few, but that was as far as they could go. And we'll have to wait and see, and I think we'll know in the next 30 days whether or not these recommendations, and I suggest they probably won't be implemented, but whether or not the county is going to take seriously these recommendations that this task force has made. Because this task force was initially built as an independent body, and it turned out to be everything but independent.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have a situation, and I'm still convinced that if you really want to get to the bottom of this, you've got to bring in an outside independent investigatory body. That's the only way you're going to get to the bottom of this. Now, the other unsolicited letter that I received named, okay, they named top of the food chain, starting with Glenda Martin's all the way down, okay, including one guy, I believe his name is Steve House or something like that. But they gave names of all these people. The task force was never, ever given the names of these people. Matter of fact, one of those people served on the task force, okay? I mean, this is ridiculous, okay? But the task force was never, ever given the opportunity to talk to any of these people that were named in this letter that I received. And Glenda Martin, bless her soul, Glenda Martin could see the handwriting on the wall and knew that there was something that was going to be exposed if they could ever talk to her or if they could ever look into her office. So she took an early retirement.
Right.
Now, you know, come on, this looks awfully fishy.
I would agree.
So that's what you have. So the county, as far as I'm concerned, to this day, has never taken this seriously. Now, Jim Howe said in response to this latest decision, he said it was not he said it was this decision should have been made by the county commission. So that says the county commission is not in charge, okay? And they're supposed to be the overseers of the juvenile justice facility. And they don't know what the heck is even going on. So it's a bad look. Jim Howe says it's a bad look, and it's not the answer they were looking for. And they said they were blindsided by this closing. Do you believe that?
I mean, I can't believe it because it's just been going on for so long that I can't believe that nobody would be aware of this, especially since as far as like pay is concerned, I remember shortly before I left ARES that they had Lori Gibbs had a meeting and told us that she was advocating for us to get better pay, but didn't know how much it was going to be or when it was going to happen. And that happened right after, because there was kind of a little bit of an outrage with our employees at adult residential because the detention deputies just got a huge bump in their pay. And at the time, I guess they didn't require any type of college education or anything. And they also lowered the level to be able to become a detention deputy to like $18 to $19 an hour. So that left the rest of us pretty upset that they were getting almost $20 an hour compared to like the COs that are having to work just as hard that require at least a couple of credits of psychology to be able to work for Sedgwick County Department of Corrections. So that really, really upset a lot of people that we didn't receive better pay as well.
Okay. Stephanie, I want you to hold on just for 1 minute. I'm going to pause this just for 1 minute and I'll be right. Okay. Now, I have in my hand here now, Stephanie, the second unsolicited letter that I received, okay, regarding this issue, and it particularly addresses staffing. And I just want to read a little bit of it here, and they go on to name names, and I'm going to introduce those names as we go along. And it says here, talking about the situation with Sedgwick Lawford. This was not a coincidence that this behavior with the Sedgwick County Department of Corrections was not investigated. My hope is that no commissioner was informed of this letter that I'm writing and decided to keep it to themselves. There are so many other employees out there that have a story to tell, but will not do so due to fear of retaliation by upper management. Until the county accepts responsibility for how they allow upper management and supervisors treat their staff, another incident will occur. Employees don't leave their home to work a shift only to be mistreated by an adult that does not know how to do their job professionally. A change will have to take place for the county to keep good workers. Now, he goes on to say that the timeline has been provided to the public many times. Each time it states the foster dad asked for help because his foster son, Sedgwick Lawford, was having a mental crisis. Wichita police were called out to help with the problem. The foster dad seemed to have wanted a mental health evaluation done. Now, we all know that, okay? But due to the lack of missing information of what took place at the home and between the time Sedgwick Lawford arrived at Jack, the family and the public may never know the truth. And I probably agree with him on that. So now what I want to do is I want to skip to what he says here is what we all know, and this was made known by me because I read this letter at the Sedgwick County Commission meeting 2 months ago. There is a shortage of staff at each facility. Management continues to bully staff by first requesting you to volunteer your time. In some instances, they will request you to work alone, to leave your assigned placement during your work hours, so overtime is not acquired. They will reassign you or tell you before you leave work for the day that you cannot leave due to mandatory overtime, causing stress on the worker and their families. They never take any consideration of staff's feelings when time is done. The juvenile detention facility is in dire need of help. Workers from other facilities have been assigned to work at JDF after having 1 day of cross-training or no training at all. These workers are left in a pod at JDF to watch kids that act out, use profanity, attack staff, along with kids that are COVID positive. Now, staff shortages are also taking place at the Juvenile Intake and Assessment, the JIAC, Juvenile Residential Facility, and the Adult Residential Facility. This is very stressful for staff, and management does not seem to care about the welfare of their employees and mistreatment of staff by supervisors. And in no way do these uninformative supervisor trainings help when you are dealing with untrainable individuals. Now, I'm going to do something here, and I feel comfortable doing this because I did this at the Sedgwick County Commission meeting. He goes on to talk about the person has been in this position for status only. He's talking about Mrs. Martins. Mrs. Martins loves to walk around and smile as if she's getting things done, but it's just about her. She spent money knocking down a wall in the administration building, blocking entrance for workers or the public, giving only one-way entrance by elevator. An emergency exit was built so that she and her staff could go on top of the building, and by doing this, she was only protecting herself and the rest of upper management. This was done just in case current media publicity takes place like now. Protesters and irate parents approach the building, she would be protected. There's no protection for others. Mrs. Martins only has herself in mind and not employees of DOC. So he lists the names here. He says, now let's investigate upper management and some of the supervisors within these facilities. So the first person he names is Linda Martins, who is or was the director of corrections. And then he goes on to list Steve Stonehouse. Now this is the guy that was on the task force. He is the
really?
I'm sorry?
He was on the task force?
He was on the task force. Mr.
Okay.
Stonehouse. Stephanie Lane, who's the JDF coordinator. Chris Collins dash Thorman. Thorman, T-H-O-M-A-N, Thorman, administrative and training coordinator. Beth Hopper, JDF corrections coordinator. Jody Transgard, program director, Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center. Alex Alba, intake coordinator at JIAC. Okay, so those are the names of the upper level management that he provided. This is where, in my opinion, the problem lies. Okay, and you're not, the turnover there is totally out of control. And it's because of the fact that you don't have people in place, apparently, from what I'm reading and from what you're telling me, that have the skill set to know how to professionally deal with staff. And that is where you're from, because staff is driving away employees. Okay, and this at a time when you're already understaffed and have been for years. It's been well known, it's documented. So everybody at the county knows this, but they haven't acted upon it. They have ignored it. They put it aside. It's not been priority one.
It is.
What led to the death of Sedgwick Lofton, and they still don't get it. Is there something that I'm missing?
It's just what you said. It's you've got people. First of all, they have a problem with keeping their people because I think that there's a lot of problems with not having experience in leading people or having supervisory leadership skills. And so you've already got a person that doesn't have experience. They're not getting paid very well, and they're also being treated, not very well by their upper leadership, like their directors and their program directors and stuff. So they're not being treated by upper level management, and they're not being recognized. So now they're irritated and stuff too, and they're not. Everybody is just living to put out fires, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like every day we go in, we're just putting out fires, and we're not thinking ahead logistically on how we want to make things better. It's just that day at that time. And everybody's stressed out and they're tired and they don't like their working, environment.
So Stephanie, I want to ask you about a couple of factors here.
Okay.
First of all, these is from what I understand, the pay for these juvenile staffers, not juvenile staffers, but I mean these for staffers for these juvenile facilities, starting pay is like 17, 20, something like that an hour. Is that correct?
That is not correct. That is if you're a supervisor.
Oh, that's
Now,
just for supervisors.
That's just a supervisor. So like you're just run of the mill, your COs that are really doing all the work and having to put in all the hours. Those people are getting paid $14.94 an hour, I believe.
Okay. Now, it also was said by, I believe, one of these individuals that there is also a 10% bonus or something like that. And in addition to that, after you've been there for 60 days, you will qualify for a bonus of $1,500.
I never heard that.
Never heard that. Okay.
I've never heard that. Unless that's something brand new. I've never heard of it.
Okay. So in other words, my main point is that these are not low level paying jobs. I mean, this is not minimum wage. I mean, even at $14 an hour, that's not minimum wage. Okay. Now, so I would think that you wouldn't have that much of a problem. And I think it's apparent that they don't have that much of a problem finding staffing. Their problem is retaining staffing.
Retaining staffing, yes.
And that problem is created by upper level management and supervision. Now, so let me ask you this. What kind of training is provided, and do you feel the training that is provided is adequate for the job?
Okay, so it's one day, well, it's a week, a PowerPoint. That's your training. You get to sit in a classroom environment and you go through, it's death by PowerPoint the entire time. Now they do have different requirements for different types of holds as it relates to the juveniles and the adults. So with the adults, we learn one physical movement. It's for restraining our clients, because that's what we call them. We call them clients for restraining. And then the juveniles require an additional type training on how to subdue kids. So other than that, we're looking at like a week, and that's including like CPR and like policies and all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay, so let me ask you now, are we talking about 1 week of classroom training?
Yes.
Okay, so that's initially, right? I mean, that's when you're first hired, that's the training you receive. Is that correct?
Yes, and a lot of the times you're already working on the floor. You're working on the floor and you're waiting to get into that class.
Okay, so basically you're working with these juveniles without the full classroom training. Is that right?
Well, I can't speak for the JDF. I can speak for what we do over at adult residential. I can't imagine it would be that much different because it's still under the same umbrella of Sedgwick County Department of Corrections. So it shouldn't be different.
Okay, so let me ask you, are you suggesting that most of your training is on the job training? Is it on the job training? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, it's like on the job training, and you're not supposed to let them stand by themselves, but a lot of the times, like if the new hire is maybe just gonna stand watch in the middle of the hall to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to. I mean,
Okay, you're breaking up on me. I didn't hear the last part of that.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
You want to put it on pause real quick?
Okay.
Dogs.
Okay, now you want to, the last part of what you said I didn't catch.
Okay, what were we actually talking about? Which thing?
The on-the-job training.
Right, so you're paired up with another CO and you're supposed to kind of just shadow them, but you're actually, you know, conducting things like pat searches.
You're muted. Okay. Go ahead. You were muted, but okay. So, okay. So let me ask you, how long did you work at DOC? How long did you work at DOC?
How long did you say?
Yes.
Close to 5 years. It
5
was
years?
like, it was like 4.5 years.
Okay. And so let me ask you, why did you leave?
I just got tired. The mistreatment and sometimes it just didn't seem like a person, like a professional setting. Tired of working for that. I don't need that. It was already getting to the point where I was getting super stressed out.
Something is wrong with your mic. You keep muting and unmuting, muting and unmuting.
Yeah, I know. It's because I keep getting a phone call from someone and then I don't. Maybe I could put it.
You're completely muted now. Okay, now you're unmuted. Okay, now tell me, now that you're unmuted, tell me why you left the facility. You said you got tired of working at.
I got tired of working there. So sorry, James.
Okay, all right. Well, let me just ask you this. As a 5-year former employee, what suggestions would you have or recommendations would you make to the county to take seriously this staffing issue and how to handle it and how to deal with it so that they can retain staff much better than what they're presently doing?
First of all, I would say that they need to get it together with the pay. Like, you need to make it worth it. This job isn't easy. It's mentally and physically exhausting. You're asking to be taken away from your family and the things that you love to do every day. And you need to, I mean, just sweeten the deal a little bit so people feel better about coming to work. And, you know, we getting paid a little over $14 an hour is just, you get paid more at working at a grocery store than you do with the Department of Corrections, and you're dealing with a lot more responsibility. There's pay, and then the way that they treat their staff. Unprofessional, rumors, gossiping, a toxic environment. So they talk to you in a way that they're condescending when they talk to you. The upper level leadership, they talk in a very condescending, non-approachable way when they talk to you. So you just feel like you're working every day for pennies and going home to your family where you don't feel like when you go home, you want to like sit down and talk anymore with your husband or wife or kids because you're just so physically and mentally drained from working in these jobs. So that would be mine, is learn how to be a leader and pay the people the money that they deserve to be paid.
Okay. Once again, Stephanie Hernandez, I want to thank you for taking the time to visit with me this morning. I appreciate your comments. And we will see if the county does anything to indicate to the taxpayers that they, in fact, are in charge as they should be, not only of the juvenile justice system, but of the upper level management. Because
Right.
it's right now, it seems like the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. And it's a very bad look for the county commission. So Stephanie, thank you very much. And I hope you have a nice rest of your day.
You too. Thank you, James.
Appreciate you coming.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.